Hello everyone and Happy New Year. We are shooting this on New Year's Day, 1st of January 2022, so I didn't want to lose the opportunity to just wish everyone out there a Happy New Year. And for those joining me back here on this channel, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those dropping by for the first time, welcome. And if you enjoy the content that I share on this channel, if you find it useful, please click the subscribe button. That way you get notifications whenever I put out a new video. Today's discussion is qualities that make you a great project manager. So today the focus is just going to be on five qualities that I think make you a great project manager. So we'll dive straight in, and the very first one is great project managers are driven by getting things done. And I'll always try and tie everything back to previous videos and discussions. And so we know that projects have got a clear start and a clear end. And so for you to have finished a project, you need to get to that clear end. And so good project managers really need to be driven by that overarching goal of completing the project. And I know we all have different superpowers, right? Some people are really good at getting things started, but they don't like to motor through and see things through. And that in itself is not a bad thing at all. It just means that that personality type will struggle a little bit more with projects, whereas some people really shoot and gun for that end point, and they will motor through the difficulties and the challenges. Not to say that projects are made up of difficulties, and there are a lot of good things that happen during the course of a project, but sometimes they take longer than anticipated. Sometimes you bump into things that you had not planned for and all of that, and sometimes the team itself is struggling to see that end goal, and so the project manager needs to really be motivating the team to continue to strive to reach that end goal. That, I feel, is one of the very distinctive qualities of what would make a great project manager. So that's number one, done and dusted. The second quality that I believe makes a true great project manager, actually great project managers are comfortable leading without authority. And what do I mean by that? If you go back to authoritative management texts, for example, they talk about referent power. You know, if you've got a line manager who's got 5 reportees under them, and those reportees have got their own management and reporting structure underneath them, it's very clear they manage via referent power. They can hire and fire. Project managers, fortunately or unfortunately, I think it's fortunate, do not have that referent power. They have to use softer superpowers, if I can put it that way, in order to get the team to locomote forward. So project managers really need to be comfortable leading without that authority. You'll be getting people in a matrix project structure, and we'll talk about matrix project structures in the future, where people are coming from their different formal organizational departments and congregating under the project. The project manager has got absolutely no management authority over those individuals, but still has got the responsibility to move the project forward. You need to be comfortable leading by influence. You need to be comfortable not taking the limelight and pushing the team forward as the people who are achieving the project outcomes. You also need to be comfortable leading people who in the formal organizational structure are more senior than you, because they will come in, they'll be part of your project structure, and you cannot shy away from holding them accountable and all that good stuff. That can be really challenging if anyone tries to pull rank from in kind of like traditional organizational structure. So I feel that that is one quality that makes you a strong project manager, but that can be one quality where you need to work a lot more, because you are pulling in all of these softer skills that maybe a generic manager within a formal organizational structure would not have to work on. The third quality, and you'll probably have heard about this ad nauseum, and that is communication. Great project managers are great communicators. And by communication, it's all of the forms of communication. It's verbal communication, it's the nonverbal communication, it's the written communication. What do you say and how do you say it? What tone of voice do you say it in? What is your body language like, especially in difficult situations? Good situations, happy situations. I mean, there's a lot of leeway of what you can get away with as a leader or even as an individual. But when it comes to difficult situations, how you respond verbally, your body language and all of that make a huge difference. Being able to fashion communications for a given circumstance is also very important. Being able to fashion communication for a given audience, something that is going up the chain all the way to the C-suite, you would fashion that a lot differently from something that is going out to project operatives. At the project operative level, you can go to town with all the jargon, you know, like go deep into the weeds with language that people understand. When you go to the C-suite, they really don't care about what a database is, or that you've run out of space on the hard drive, or mundane details like that. They want to know what that impact is on the overall organizational goal or the project goal that you're trying to achieve for the organization. So it's very important to be able to know who your audience is and fashion your communication accordingly. Determine also whether certain messaging needs to go via an email or whether that requires a meeting, or if it's a meeting, who are the primary people that need to be part of that meeting for that message to land correctly. Then the very last thing I'll say about being good communicators, like I said, good news, there's really not a lot of, you know, guardrails you need to put around good news, because everybody loves good news, isn't it? But when you communicate bad news, I feel like great project managers are not scared to communicate bad news. They'll communicate it at the most appropriate, at the earliest appropriate opportunity to communicate that. And I'll say earliest appropriate in the sense that once you know there's good news to communicate, it doesn't mean that the appropriate moment is to communicate it right away. But the appropriate moment is not to wait a week later, right? You need to communicate that as close to source as possible. So communicate bad news because you don't want to have sudden surprises or not communicate certain things that can have impact a lot later than when people can actually do something about it. But having said that, do not communicate bad news for the sake of communicating bad news. Like, oh, I did it, I communicated bad news. That's not what it is about. Communicate bad news, but have a very clear plan of action about this is the pickle that we are in, and this is the plan that we have to move this forward. Or we don't have a real plan to move this forward, but these are the options that we are evaluating. That helps to kind of calm the anxiety of your audience, the receiving nodes, so to speak. So I think that's one key element of, you know, good project managers. Everyone can communicate good news. Really good project managers know how to communicate when and how to communicate bad news. So on to a happier note, the third quality that I would say, oh, my counting is off actually. It would then be the fourth quality of a great project manager would be that they gravitate towards structure and they create structure. Now, projects by their very nature are sub-organisms or sub-organizations, and so having structure around your project is key to success. You need to know what your communication plan is going to be. You need to know what your execution plan is going to be. You need to know what your human resources plan is going to be. Now I'm going kind of PM bulky a little bit into all of those knowledge areas, but basically you need to have structure. You need to even have an organizational structure about who does what. You need to have your RACI, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted or informed on what. Have that very, very clear and use that structure throughout the life cycle of your project. As you're planning, as you're executing, monitoring and controlling, and as you're closing out the project. Very key. So you create the structure, you put it in place, you gravitate towards it, you are using that, as you are executing the project through and through. So structure is going to be your best friend. If you are a structure person, your personality is really nicely fitted for projects. So that's number 4. The 5th one is going to sound kind of counterproductive, or counterintuitive, not counterproductive, counterintuitive to the 4th one. So I talked about just now structure and gravitating towards structure. The 5th quality that makes a really, really good project manager is being flexible and I actually worded it in my notes here. They embrace flexibility. So you are adaptable, you are flexible. And the reason why that is key is nothing ever goes according to plan. And I don't say this to freak anyone out, that's the reality of whether it's project, it's operations, it's vision, maybe vision creation is different, because vision, you're projecting an ideal, a utopia. So maybe maybe that rule does not apply that much, but you still have to tweak your vision as you go along and reality hits your vision. So I think it's still applicable. But anyway, I digress a little bit on there. Great project managers are flexible and they adapt, because nothing ever goes according to plan. You plan out your project, you start executing, data starts coming back about, oh, that thing that we planned is actually not going to go according to that plan. We have to replan. So that's the element of flexibility that comes in there. Now you have to adapt to what the real world is telling you so that you can continue to shoot towards your goal. You have to be flexible in your approach towards pretty much everything, but more so towards how you engage with people. You have different personalities across projects. How you engage with person A is not necessarily the same as you would engage with person B. Person A might be very much, of the same DNA as you are, maybe a project being as well. So you interact in a way that is dramatically different. Person B might be more artistic and more creative, and they are more visual in their thinking. The way that you work with them is different from person B. Then you might have person C, who is a lot more risk averse than persons A and B. And so when you're working with persons A and B, they are willing to take on more risks. So they do not need everything to be mapped out for them and to understand that every I has been dotted and every T has been crossed. But person C is very risk averse. They need a little bit more in-depth detail about how things are going to work, and so you spend a little bit more time, and your angle of approach with them is very, very different. And the same applies to, if you're working with vendors. Vendor A might have a different approach that they take. Vendor B might have their own approach. So flexibility is the only change is the only constant, and diversity in terms of situations and personalities is the only constant. So a really good project manager adapts to change, and they're flexible. And I mentioned at the beginning that it's counterintuitive to the structure. It works hand in hand, really. It doesn't mean that if you're flexible, you're dropping structure. And that if you're structured, you're not flexible. You just need to know when to engage with which gear. And so those are 5 of the qualities that I felt I should share in the new year to kick us off into 2022. Hope that this was helpful. And again, if you find the content here useful, please click the subscribe button. And until next video, you all take care. Bye.